Assalamu alaikum, year 8. I'm hoping that this video today is going to help explain to you exactly how to complete your assessment task for term 3. So if you're here in Canvas under assignments and then assessment 3, you'll notice that we've got 2 templates here for you, and they're there to help you complete the assessment task. So there'll be 3 things that you use. You're going to use one of each, and we've also included this website here to help you. So I'm just going to select that website, because you are asked to choose one of these 6 aspects of medieval Europe. Now, it says Middle Ages, medieval Europe, it's the same thing. Once you click on any of these aspects, it's going to take you to the website where you've got more information here. It's got some primary sources as well, like you've got physical sources. You can use this if you want. Some more information, more visual. Pardon me. So I'm going to be coughing a bit in this video. I'll try to hold back. If you scroll down on whichever page you went to, so if you're on any of these 6s, it would all be the same format. You scroll down to where it says primary sources, and this is really where you're going to be spending most of your time for this assessment, because the assessment asks you to collect sources and then analyze them. So I've already pre-selected this source here today. It's on the topic of wandering minstrels, which are musicians. So they'd have bagpipes, this is called a lute, a little harp, and they would roam around the town and essentially sing ballads and poems and songs, and they would share all these like new, unique ideas to people who were just very common people working every day. They didn't actually get out and go to any other towns or communities. So that's the topic of wandering minstrels. I already know that I'm going to do my TOMAC on this source here. So it's by David Stevens in History Today. So to get you started, the first thing you should probably do is open up the TOMAC source analysis template. Just go ahead and click make a copy. And from here, you've got 8 sources. I've got them tabbed here on the side, but you can always just scroll through them if you need to get to them. So you need to find 8 different sources. I'm going to start with source 1 today. And look, I'm just going to roll straight into it here for you. So my first source is this one here by David Stevens. He says, wandering minstrels were the journalists of their day, keeping the people informed of ideas and events from beyond the borders of their limited acres or towns. They traded in pleasure, in hard news, and gossip, in the latest fashions, in poetry, song, and dance. They were the voice of change. And so really what this is saying is that these wandering minstrels were, again, really the messengers of information. They were the TMZ, right? Or they were the sort of Instagram feed where you could find new information and find out what is new and happening in other communities, in other towns. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go ahead and copy this text. Zoom out a little bit. I would do the same thing if I was doing a visual source. I would just copy that. Come over to my template where it says paste source here. I'm just going to paste without formatting. And there I've got my text. All right. If I want, which I might do because I'm going to show you what an excellent example would be, is I would also include that there. So when we do a source analysis, there are 5 aspects that we need to look into. The first is the type. So what type of source is it? Is it a primary or secondary? Primary source means it comes from the period that it's talking about or referencing. And a secondary source means it's written afterwards. A primary source might be a letter written by Prophet Muhammad, or it might be a photograph taken of, let's say, Adolf Hitler back in 1939 when he was at the height of his power. That's a primary source. Primary source could also be a building. So let's say the Eiffel Tower itself is a primary source. A secondary source is something written well and truly after the period that we're studying. So a secondary source could be a textbook about Prophet Muhammad. It might be a magazine article about Adolf Hitler. It could be, you in art class drawing a painting of the Eiffel Tower. Technically, that would be a secondary source because you're not there at the time. Like, you're not at the site when it should be made, if that makes sense. This is happening after the fact. So if we think about this source here, we can already have a look at the date. 1989, this was 30 years ago, which straight away I already know that that's going to be a secondary source because medieval Europe, the Middle Ages, is happening in like the year 1300, not 19. Okay, so we're off by about 600 years. So to answer that very first question, I could say, highlight that. I might say the written source. Okay, because I'm already identifying that it is written, so I can delete that as well. The written source is a secondary source. Pardon me. Although, right, because this fella, David Stevens, has written it himself, although it was written firsthand by David Stevens in 1989, right? The information is regarding medieval Europe, a period which predates means comes before, it predates the date of publication, 1989. What's it? By approximately 600 years. So I've said it's a secondary source, and then I've explained why. Okay? So that was type. We've done type. We can go ahead and tick that off. Now we need to look at the origin. So who created it? Where does the source come from? And when was it made? Now, I could answer all these three questions just from the information here. But one of the great things that this website actually does is it leaves you with hyperlinks. Hyperlinks means you can click on it and it takes you to a different page. So if I click on History Today, it's going to take me to the article. And unfortunately, it's behind a paywall. Okay, so you're going to have to buy to get access to it. I don't want you to do that. But if we go back and have a look at who David Stevens actually was, we can see he's written one article. So we've got this History Today, which I know is a historical magazine. He's written one article all the way back in 1989, where he is... Actually, what's that question? Who created it? This is very simple. This source was written by David Stevens, right? A writer for History Today, an historical magazine. Okay. Now, if you didn't know that History Today was a magazine, you would just have a look at the page that it's on, do a quick Google of what this site is, what is History Today, and it would bring you to it's a magazine. So where does the source come from? So this particular source came from the magazine, and it actually, pardon me, it actually gave us, where was it? Here, back on this website. In this very tiny text, it gave us the super specific issue that it was from. So the volume is like how many years, so this magazine was in its 39th year And this was the 8th issue, the 8th magazine. And if you think about it, magazines usually come out one every month. August is the 8th month, so it is the 8th issue of the 39th year when it was around. Not important for your assessment, but, just unique knowledge to know, I guess. So where does the source come from? I would say this source was published in History Today magazine. And I can paste without formatting in volume 39, issue 8 of August 1989. Oops, yeah. And that's also telling me when it was made. Boom. Tick origin. I know that it was written by David Stevens, who was a writer for History Today, and the source was published in August of 1989. Tick, done. Now we go on to motive or motivation. So why was this source actually created? So if I'm looking at History Today magazine, and I go to good old Wikipedia. A lot of people have a lot of hatred towards Wikipedia. It's genuinely pretty good. So, History Today is an illustrated history magazine published monthly in London since 1951. It presents serious and authoritative history to as wide a public as possible. Okay, so it's trying to educate the wider public about historical events. Why was this source created? Very simple. History Today, what could we say, is a magazine that offers and I'm quoting the Wikipedia website, authoritative, is that how you spell it? Authoritative? Yeah. Authoritative history with access to a range of audiences, right? That's what it was saying. I need to make sure that I'm referencing this Wikipedia page, by the way. I will do that at the end. What can I say? So essentially, it was a way for history to be taught to who was it taught to? The public. Outside of educational institutions. There we go. That's the very formal way of saying it. And what was the reason for it even being made? So what was the reason? This was written, like this here. Why was this particular part written? To shed light on the role of wandering minstrels in medieval Europe. Done. Type, done. Origin, done. Motive, done. Audience. Who was the intended audience? And you notice that we're going to have to be repeating ourselves a couple times, and that's okay. So who was the audience? Who is the source initially made for? Has the audience changed over time? And if so, to whom is the source now intended for? So who was the intended audience? Again, I'm trying to restate the question, so I wouldn't just say like the public. I would say the intended audience for this source is general public. Okay. Although, to be more specific, likely a student or maybe educator of medieval European history, you know? You know what? A student would have likely been the intended audience. Perfect. Who was this source initially made for? We got that down. Pap, pap. Has the audience changed over time? Well, we now know that it is stuck behind a paywall, so the only people who can access that are subscribers of History Today. Yeah? So over time, the audience has now changed to only to be only accessed by users of History Today. Does that make sense? Over time, the audience has now changed to be only accessed by users. Blah, blah, blah. Kind of. That doesn't really make sense, but you know what I'm trying to say there. You edit that. If so, to whom is the source now intended for? Users of History Today. No, I've already said that. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, that's done. Audience is done. Tick. Content. So what is this even teaching us about medieval Europe? So I would read this again and think, what's it actually telling me about my topic, which I'm going to be doing Wandering Minstrels, yeah? That's my whole thing. Wandering Minstrels, which was this one here. So what's it even telling us? What knowledge about medieval European life can be learnt from this source? Stevens, and here's a great thing, because when you reference like a historian or something, don't call him David. Don't call him Dave, D Diddy, D Son, D Dogs. No. Stevens, or full name, David Stevens. Never first name, only second name. All right? So Stevens is writing about the role of wandering minstrels in medieval Europe. Now, I noticed back here he's talking about bagpipers, which if you don't know bagpipe, these dudes, these are like the traditional military version, but it's essentially the same thing. Where was it? Wandering minstrels. There's a thing of it. Yeah, this guy here. There you go. See, he's wearing like a silly hat. He's kind of like a jester. He's like a Joker guy. He's got a flute in his mouth and he's holding this bagpipe. So he's talking about, yeah, this is a wandering minstrel. So Stevens is writing about the role of wandering minstrels in medieval Europe, particularly bagpipers. Perfect. He indicates, good use of language there, that the wandering minstrels, and here I'm almost rewriting this because I'm pulling out information from here. He indicates that the wandering minstrels were the, what was it? What are they? They're the messengers of information for local people, gathering and spreading stories, news, gossip, and I think there's something else in there. What did they do? News, gossip, latest fashions. There it is. And latest fashions in the form of, it says that up here, poetry, song, and dance. Poetry, song, and dance. There you go. Whew. And it's they're bringing this information from communities far away. And that is the information that this source gives us. Thank you for sticking with me. If you've made it this far, you've just had an amazing example. Oop, double spike there. An amazing example of what a pretty much a full marker is going to look like for each of these sources. So I've done this. Now what do I even do with it? I've just done this for one source. You would be repeating this for the other 7 sources. Can't do this one though. That's because it's already been done. But what would I do with this information? If I go back to the Canvas page and I go to Google Slides template, I click make a copy. Now I want to introduce you to the Google Slides. So the big thing, in order to make this slide actually work, do not touch anything that is not in purple, basically. So if there's stuff in regular like black color, don't touch it. Just edit the purple stuff. So I would say Mr. Sam Ashton. That's my name. On our second slide, and there's a reason for that, by the way. I'll show you at the end. So we have our 6 rooms. You can leave that if you want. Basically, these are where you're going to paste copies of the sources that you end up gathering. But you can just do that at the end. This is like you do this at the end. Yeah, I've got 8 artifacts there for you, so you can just paste them straight in. On the 9th slide, you've got artifact number 1, name of source. It's going to say complete your tomac here, stick in the image of the text, and then you're done. Now, because I went and I did all the hard work here, all I have to do is just copy and paste. So I'm going to copy this table. I'm actually going to delete that. I might have to scoot that over, I reckon. And I reckon I have to scoot that up in order to fit this table in because it's going to be big. Ugh, okay. Here's what I'll do. I'll shrink it down a bit. And this is just like the easy, almost brain dead stuff. You don't even have to really think to do this sort of stuff. There we go. I've got my tomac in here, which is solid. This is where you're going to stick your source. So that's why I pasted it in here. So I can just go copy, come across, paste, get rid of that. Look at that. That is done. Oh, name of source. What could I do the name? I could either do David Stevens. I'm going to do history today. I'm going to do that. Make that nice and pretty. How's that? Hey, can't ask for much more than that. And then I would go on to source number 2. Repeat the process. I'm going back onto this page. I could find another source either down here, or I could try and reverse search this to try and find out who the author was. Underneath all these photos, it's got woodcut of a minstrel, and it was created roughly, C means circa, which is around. Think of circa, circle, around 1490, which is the period of Middle Ages. This one up here, it's just some sort of tapestry or art of some wandering minstrels, created circa 1250. Perfect. I could copy that image, boom, go into there, and I go forwards from here. If I can't find out like who created it, where it's come from, you can try something. If I save this image as a JPEG, and then you go reverse image, oops, into Google, you go reverse image search, and you upload. Where was it? I think it was this one. Sometimes this doesn't work. Alamy, make your own chase. And you just have to look through here. Okay, so we got a museum one. So you could potentially have a look at that. No, it's in Russian. Don't like that. You could also do... How could I find this? I would do Wandering Minstrels into... Just paste that into Google. Have a look at images. That's from the website we just looked at. Wandering Minstrels art. It's from that same website. Okay. So because I can't find this exact photo anywhere else, but from the, like if I click on this, it's just going to bring me back to that page. See? So because I can't find this from anywhere, I would just simply reference this website. So when it comes to saying what type of source is it, you would still say primary because it's, you know, this is a like a tapestry or painting or something like that. Who created it? It's unsure of who created it, or where it's come from. We know that it's come from around the period, so circa 1250. We would just say that it's been published on the Spartacus educational website. That's what you'd do for origin. And then you just go on from there. So you would think, well, if this has been made back in the day and it's about these people who walk around and share stories and messages and whatever, why are they doing a painting about that? Why, like, what was the reason for that? And like, who would this painting be intended for? Was it like for a poor peasant? Probably not. It was likely for like some sort of noble person, someone of nobility. And then what can you learn about this source? So the fact that it's even in a painting right now, you could say like that shows the importance of wandering minstrels because they were honored in some way by the noble class. And you could say that, they obviously wore long red robes. They carried, this is called a lute. It's a wooden instrument, and other bowed and stringed instruments. They weren't dressed like peasants. They were dressed almost like nobility. Like they've got these very nice robes. It's not rags and potato sacks, They have nice hair. It's not rough and scraggly. You can sort of, pull out that information. The shoes that they wear, color of their skin, color of their hair. Like there's so much information just from this image alone that you can have more than enough to fill in this information. And you do the same for artifact 2. You just paste in the image, put in the tomac there, and then you continue on all the way down. That is pretty much where I'm going to leave this. Oh, one last thing. Very last slide. You got your bibliography. I need to make sure that I am referencing stuff. So, hello. There we go. So I've got my Wikipedia page. I had this page here. More the better. This was one of the pages that I used. Boom, I've already got 3 references. There you go, guys. That's pretty much everything that I think that I could ever give you as far as an explanation goes. Yeah. Good luck, and I hope this video has helped you immensely. Please don't bother your teachers with questions. They're just going to forward you to this video. So thank you very much for watching.